It was just another Tuesday night, or so I thought. I'd finished a late shift, wolfed down some cold pizza, and crashed into bed around midnight. You know that deep, dreamless sleep you fall into when you're utterly exhausted? That was me, dead to the world, until something pierced through the silence. It was 3:03 a.m. I know the exact time because the first thing I saw was my phone screen, blazing with an unnatural white light on my nightstand. It wasn't a notification, not a call, not an alarm. The screen was just on, and it was bright. So bright it made my eyes water. I squinted, reaching for it, my mind still foggy with sleep. My first thought was that it must have been a system update or something. Annoying, but whatever. I just turn it off and go back to sleep. But then I heard it. A sound. It was coming from my phone's speakers, faint at first, like static. But it grew louder, resolving itself into something truly horrifying. It was the sound of screaming. Not just one person, but a chorus of them. They were terrified, agonized screams, overlapping and echoing in a way that made my blood run cold. They were raw, desperate sounds I'd never heard before in any movie or video game. This felt real. My heart started hammering against my ribs. I snatched the phone, my fingers fumbling with the volume buttons trying to silence the awful noise. But nothing happened. I tried to turn the phone off, holding down the power button, but the screen remained lit. The screams unrelenting. Panic began to set in, a cold wave washing over me. What was happening? Was my phone hacked? Was this some kind of sick, elaborate prank? The screams seemed to fill my small bedroom, bouncing off the walls, trapping me in a bubble of pure terror. I could almost picture the faces contorting in pain, the unseen horror they were witnessing. It was more than just a sound. It was a feeling, an overwhelming sense of dread that seeped into my bones. I felt like I was listening to the soundtrack of a nightmare. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the screaming stopped. The abrupt silence was somehow even more terrifying. The bright white screen flickered and went black. For a moment, I just sat there in the darkness, clutching the phone. My breath caught in my throat, listening to the frantic pounding of my own heart. The silence was heavy, thick with anticipation. That's when it happened. A new sound. It wasn't loud like the screams. It was a whisper. A dry, raspy sound that seemed to come from right beside my ear, even though I knew it was coming from the phone's speaker. It was intimate and chillingly close, and it whispered a single word, my name. It whispered, Alex. I threw the phone across the room. It hit the far wall with a clatter and fell to the floor. I scrambled out of bed, backing away until my back hit the cool plaster of the opposite wall. I stood there, shaking, staring at the spot where the phone lay silent in the darkness. My name. How did it know my name? This wasn't a random hack. This was personal. My mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation. Maybe it was a pre-recorded message from a creepy app I'd downloaded? A virus? But I'm careful about what I install. I couldn't think of anything that could do this. The way it whispered my name. It felt like something was in the room with me, using my phone as a conduit. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. I just sat on my bed with the lights on, watching the door, expecting. I don't know what. Every creak of the old apartment building, every distant siren, made me jump out of my skin. When the sun finally started to rise, painting the sky in shades of gray and orange, I felt a small sliver of relief. Darkness is a monster's best friend, right? Eventually, I worked up the courage to approach the phone. It was lying face down on the carpet, looking completely normal. No cracks, no damage. Just a regular smartphone. I picked it up gingerly, half expecting it to start screaming again. But it was dead. The battery was completely drained, which was impossible. It had been fully charged when I went to bed. I plugged it in, and after a few minutes the charging symbol appeared. I powered it on, my hand trembling slightly. I checked everything. Call logs, browser history, recently installed apps. There was nothing. No record of any activity at 3:03 a.m. It was as if it never happened. My phone's memory had been wiped clean of the event, but mine hadn't. For the next few days, I was on edge. I started leaving my phone in the living room at night as far away from me as possible. I jumped at every notification. Every time my phone buzzed, a jolt of adrenaline shot through me. I told a couple of friends about it, but they just looked at me like I was crazy. "Probably just a nightmare, man," one of them said, clapping me on the shoulder. "A really vivid one." But I knew it wasn't a dream. The memory was too clear. The terror too real. About a week later, I was starting to convince myself that maybe they were right. Maybe it was just a fluke, a glitch, a night terror of epic proportions. I was starting to relax. That night, I forgot to leave my phone in the living room. It was on my nightstand again, charging. I fell asleep, exhausted from a week of paranoia and lack of sleep. And at 3:03 a.m., it happened again. The screen flared to life, casting long, dancing shadows across my room. But this time, there were no screams. There was only silence. I stared at the screen, my body paralyzed with fear. I knew what was coming. After a minute that felt like an eternity, the whisper came again, slithering out of the speaker. It was the same dry, chilling voice. But this time, it said something different. It whispered, "I see you, Alex." I screamed. I didn't care who heard me. I grabbed the phone, ran into the living room, and smashed it. I smashed it with a hammer I kept in my toolbox. I hit it again and again, until the screen was a spiderweb of cracks and the casing was splintered plastic. I didn't stop until it was nothing but a pile of broken electronics. I stood there, breathing heavily, the hammer still in my hand. I was shaking uncontrollably. I haven't owned a smartphone since. I use an old basic flip phone now. It can call and it can text. That's it. Some people find it weird, but they don't understand. Sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet, I think I can still hear it. A faint whisper on the edge of my hearing. Or maybe it's just the memory, burned into my brain. I don't know what that thing was. A ghost, a demon, some kind of digital entity? I don't want to know. All I know is that it saw me. And I can't shake the feeling that somewhere, out there in the wires and the signals, it's still watching. Thanks for listening to my story. It's been hard to talk about. Be careful with your technology. You never know what's listening on the other side. If you enjoyed this, or if it sufficiently creeped you out, please consider liking and subscribing. Stay safe out there.